Thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Whether you're listening during your commute, while working out, or just relaxing at home, we appreciate you. Every download, every listen, and every subscription means a lot. Up next, the 12 Kyle podcast.
This is where it gets wild. So I get up and I said, how much owe you? He was like, 40. What? You want 40? This is just a degular haircut. What you asking for $40 for? And I know what y'all think. It's only $5, Kyle. Why are you tripping? I'm tripping because I always believe like you get what you pay for. And I don't think I got a $40 haircut. If I thought I had a $40 haircut, I wouldn't have a problem paying him $40. But I'm trying to figure out how Tron just 2 weeks ago said, hey, it's 35, and then you come with this 40. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am your boy, 12 Kyle. I want to thank you all for tuning in as you do each and every week. Again, this is the 12 Kyle podcast. Shout out to those of you who are watching on YouTube as well as Spotify. Man, check this out. Let me be the first, if you haven't heard it already, to wish you a happy new year. That's right. At the time of this recording, it is now 2026. I haven't recorded an episode probably in the better part of the last 3 weeks. In fact, I think I may have only recorded 1 or 2 episodes in December altogether. Last episode I did was called Best Week Ever. And in that episode, I highlighted the shenanigans for my birthday. My son Brandon celebrated his 19th birthday the day after mine. Mine was December 9th. His was December 10th. And then on December 12th, my wife Sharice got her doctorate degree from the University of Georgia. We celebrated that. And we also celebrated the victory by my South Carolina State University Bulldogs. My alma mater became Black College National Champions after defeating Prairie View in the Celebration Bowl. Sorry, J Boog. By a score of 40-38 in 4 overtimes. So if you haven't heard it already, let me be the first to wish you a happy new year. Again, I haven't recorded in a while, so it feels good to be back in the saddle. There's going to be, a couple of changes with the 12 Kyle podcast and the Rap Soul podcast. I encourage everyone, if you haven't done so already, make sure that you subscribe because I'm going to move some of the dates around. So there are going to be times where I may put out an episode and it may not be on a Thursday. It may be on a Tuesday or it may be on a Wednesday. I'm going to try to stay consistent with either Thursdays or Wednesdays, but I'm not sure. So just stay locked in, stay tied to, social media accounts, and you'll see, that I have a lot of stuff in store. Got a lot of stuff to talk about this year. So let's get right to it. So now that I've got the pandering out the way, as my man King Germ said, shout out to King Germ and Queen Germ from Pod and Saved Our Marriage Pod. Scratch that. So now that I'm back in the saddle, let's get this thing cracking. I wanted to come to you all because I'm in a very weird position right now. None of you know this, so I'm going to release this and tell you this for the first time. I'm coming public with this knowledge. At the time of this recording, I am currently without a barber. Now, I know that may not sound like a lot to you, but I am currently without a barber. And it's very weird to me because I haven't been in this space in a long time. I recently found out a couple of weeks ago, I go to my barbershop that I've been going to for the past, 10 years. And I get down, I go sit down in the little chair that I normally sit in right before I'm getting ready for my man Jimmy to cut my hair. And as I sat in the chair, it looked like everybody in the barbershop was looking at me. And my man Shorty, he was like, and we call him Shorty because he's real short. Shorty was like, he said, "You waiting on Jimmy?" And I was like, "Yeah, is he in today?" He's not in today because I didn't see him, right? And he said, "You hadn't heard?" I was like, "Heard what?" He's like, "Jimmy moved." What? Jimmy moved? Where'd he move to? Oh, Jimmy moved to Florida. Whoa. Okay. Huh. So my next question was, well, when did that happen? And it said he moved like 2 weeks ago. And it was some type of family emergency. He had to move. And Jimmy's been the guy who has cut my hair for um the past 6 years, I guess. Um, so I was a little bit off because I'm like, who's gonna cut my hair at this point? And I'll tell you what happened in that particular setting. Um, I don't know why these alarms are going off. Alarm just went off on my phone for no reason. Um, but yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about that in just a second. But um, yeah, so I'm without a barber, and it's very interesting and very intriguing to me because what I found in learning that I was gonna have to find a new barber, um, something that I discussed with King Germ. Shout out to King Germ from Pod and Saved Our Marriage. King and Queen Germ, their podcast drops every Friday. Check them out. Um, but in having a conversation with King Germ, I realized something that I probably knew already, but I'd never really given it a lot of thought. Um, you know, not having a barber interrupts the history that we have with our hair. And we have a very unique history with our hair. And when I say we, I mean black people. Folks, if you're not watching on YouTube or Spotify, I am black. um, but here's what I found out. Like, we're very particular about who we let do our hair. We're very particular about who we let cut our hair. Not everybody can do your hair. Not everybody's going to cut your hair. It's just that simple. We're very, very particular about it. I know, like for my wife, like the person who does her hair, she's been doing her hair probably for the last 10 years. The barber that I've had, he's been the same barber for the last 6 years. Like we don't move around, and we're very particular about who we let touch our hair. And that's just something that goes along with our history. I mean, like if your mom did your hair when you were a little girl, you're probably going to have whoever does her hair is going to eventually do your hair once you get older, and so forth and so on. Same with, a barber. If I go to Joey, the barber, if he cuts my hair when my sons get of age, they're going to get their haircut and they're going to get their first haircut from Joey. That's usually how the way it goes. And so not everybody can touch our hair. I mean, that's just what it is. And like, we're very particular about watering our hair, particularly the ladies. And so I said all that to say this: we have a very unique relationship with beauticians and barbers. And so me not being able to have my guy cut my hair is somewhat of a problem for me because I don't trust everybody to cut my hair. I'll be honest. And it's not like I have like, crazy designs and all kind of stuff in my hair. I mean, I keep you guys seen my hair. I keep a regular haircut, a little brush fade. I keep it low. Um, I can, if I wanted to, I could grow my hair out. Like I tell my kids, my boys in particular, they think that, like my hair won't grow but so high. I was like, look, bro, I could grow an afro if I wanted to. I'm 53, dog. I'm not growing an afro. Like, and I'm not gonna pull that Jay-Z crap and, well, Jay-Z has a wig, but that's beside the point. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm not, I'm old, man. I'm not growing my hair long. That doesn't make any sense. And especially being here in Atlanta because of the heat. Like, who wants a lot of hair when it's hot? The last thing you want to do is step outside and you got, the heat bearing down on your head and you got that, on the back of your neck. So, no, we're not doing that. So, I keep my hair cut low. I've kept it low for probably since probably since college, and we'll go back to that in just a second. But yeah, so I mean, like, I like it to look a certain way. And here's the interesting thing. Like, I can cut my own hair. I've done it before. I've done it for years. But I like it when, I go to the barber shop, and I like how I love the camaraderie of the barber shop. Again, excuse me, I've been going to the same barber for the last 10 plus years. So I know everybody in there. They know me, and it's cool. So um, like I said, we're very particular about who we let do our hair and who we let touch our hair. Um, I distinctly remember, like when I was growing up, my mom would, you know, have that hot comb. Shout out to the hot comb. She'd have that hot comb on the stove, and she would heat up the stove and she put the hot comb on it. And there's nothing like the smell of, how can I put this, burnt hair or burnt scalp. And she would do that and do her hair from time to time. Or she'd get those curlers and she'd have to turn them on in the bathroom and she'd curl her hair. And my mom has relatively short hair, but at one point in time she had it a little bit longer. But she's always had like a very short haircut. Um, and so, but I've grown up in a house where my mom, my aunts, they would curl their hair. They would put that comb, that hot comb on the stove and let it heat up and everything, and they would comb their hair. And I'm sure that's how my grandmother did their hair. And so it's been a tradition or a history. And um, while I didn't grow up in the same household as my little sister, I'm sure that's how she got her hair done as well. Um, Fast forward to, me getting with Sharice and, getting married and, seeing how she did her hair over the years. Her hair is natural now. I mean, she's been natural for probably about 10, 15 years. But when she did do her hair and, get the products and all that kind of stuff like that, um, she was very particular about who did her hair. And so now, particularly as she's gotten older, and then we had Skylar, our daughter. um, not everybody does Skylar's hair. And Skylar's very particular about when she gets twists or braids or she gets her hair braided, she wants it to look a certain way. And so she goes to the same beautician that my wife goes to. Or if she gets it braided, she goes to a specific person that braids hair. Um, and I'll be honest, I didn't realize getting your hair braided costs so much, but that's that's another story for another day. And I didn't know it was as time consuming either, because a haircut for me probably is going to last 20, 25 minutes. I may be in the barbershop a little bit longer depending on who's there. Um, but, it's not an all day thing. But, woman, little girl, she go get her hair done. Yeah, it could take a couple hours. Um, so yeah, it's very interesting, how we've been able to maneuver through these paths when it comes to hair. But I'm in a serious hair dilemma because, again, my barber has, left. And so now it's about finding someone to trust with my hair. And I'll be honest, I don't trust everybody with my hair. I've only had, and it's funny because when I was talking to King Germ said, I think he said he's had 5 people in his lifetime cut his hair. And King Germ has hair. He ain't got a lot of hair, but he's got hair. Y'all don't know what King Germ looks like. I know what he looks like. He's got hair. He's not bald or anything like that. Um, but like I said, we're just, it's something different when you have to make these kind of decisions. So I'm really, really at an impasse, really, when it comes to this, because I genuinely don't know what to do. Now, since Jimmy has left, I've had my hair cut a couple of times, but I'm still on the fence as to how I'm going to move forward. And I'll talk to you about that in just a second. Matter of fact, right now it's time to take a quick commercial break. On the other side of the break, um, we'll talk about my history of hair. Sit tight. We'll be back in just a second. We are back. Once again, it's your boy 12 Kyle. This is the 12 Kyle podcast. We're talking about hair, more specifically my hair. And I'm kind of, getting your opinion and sharing with you all what I'm going through right now. Um, so I mentioned before the break, like I've seen different transitions and different variations of how I would have to deal with my hair. Obviously, when I was in, elementary school, uh you just go to the barbershop. You go where it didn't matter who cut your hair. At least for me, it didn't matter because, you didn't have a lot of different variations of what you could get. Um, and I never had a jerry curl. Although I did want one. Shout out to y'all who had jerry curls. I was never one of Jerry's kids. I wanted one, but I never got one. Um, and so, like I said, it's there's been a journey for me. Now, by the time I got to high school, that's when things kind of flipped. Take a look at this picture here. Uh, and for those of you watching on Spotify as well as YouTube, you can check it out. If you got the audio, you just got to rock with me. This is how I looked and how my hair looked when I was in high school. Kept a low Caesar cut, real fly. That's how I kicked it. I just had a regular cut, and I would get my hair cut. I'd go to the barber shop probably, my hair didn't grow that fast. So probably every 3 weeks or so. Which is pretty cool. And haircuts were, I don't know, I think haircuts were like $7, maybe 10 at the most. But I don't ever remember. No, I take that back. Haircuts probably about $7. Probably about $7. Right. Okay. So I'm doing that. I'm rocking that. And by the time I get to like my senior year, um, I'm like, okay, I want to flip it a little bit. So I go to this hairstyle here. And it was kind of like the Bobby Brown Gumby, isometrical joint. Um, and so I'm feeling this, but in this particular picture, I really should not have taken this picture. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because uh I was supposed to get my hair cut, and the guy who normally cut my hair, I waited to the last minute to go to the barber shop. Like I found out like picture day was we were supposed to be taking senior pictures and we had football practice. I was a senior going into my excuse me, I was going into my senior year at high school at Wilson High in Florence, South Carolina. And so the guy who I went to the barber shop late, I knew I was taking pictures the next day. I knew I wasn't going to be able to, if I didn't get my hair cut on that particular Tuesday, the guy wasn't in until Wednesday and he wouldn't be in until Wednesday evening. And I wasn't going to be able to get my hair cut because pictures were Wednesday afternoon. And so I missed the guy, don't get my hair cut. So I end up trying to cut it and shape it up myself. And I didn't do a good job. And so I ended up taking a senior picture with my hair looking like this. My line isn't straight. It wasn't the way I wanted it to be, but it's me. I'm still fly, so it don't matter, right? so, so we fast forward a little bit more, and then I get to college. So I took that isometrical Gumby joint, and I made it into a high top fade. So I'm rocking the high top fade, and the high top fade is killing it. I mean, everybody at this point got a high top fade. Um, so I'm going into college, and I'm in college with the high top fade. Um, and everything was love. And I get to college with the high top fade and subsequently had to get my hair cut off. I had to get my hair cut off because uh, as a freshman, as if you follow the podcast, I talked about being on puppy line, which is an initiation. Our school mascot is called the Bulldogs. I played football for South Carolina State University, and part of our initiation in becoming Bulldogs was that you had to get your hair cut off. So I got my hair cut off, and so I went from having high top fade to a bald ass head. I mean, this was when bald heads wasn't cool. Like Michael Jordan, and he was the only person that had a bald head that was cool. So that was my journey. And then so like once I got out of school, well, probably not long after that, I cut the after getting a high top cut off, I don't think I grew it back. So I kept a low cut. And I kept a low cut and I've kept the low haircut uh since college, I graduated in 1996. Right. So it's been 30 years. So I've been rocking the same haircut. I haven't changed. I haven't done anything different. The only thing I've done over the years is as a point to try to prove to people that I could do it, I grew a beard at one point. Um, which is still bugged out because like there were people, friends in my circle that did not think I could grow a beard. And I didn't think I could grow a beard either. But I did, but yeah, and I have a beard now if you're watching, but I'm gonna cut it off. I just been lazy the last couple of days and didn't feel like shaving. Um, so anyway, that's been the journey. So what has happened to me is, I've been here in Atlanta since 1997. so it's not hard to find a black barber shop, right? Because let's be honest, I can't go to Supercuts, right? There's no way in hell I'm going to Supercuts. But I'm still very particular about my haircut, and so um, when I was out in Houston, I had a spot out there, and I would go to Houston back and forth to Houston for work, and there was a couple of times where I was in Houston and I needed a cut. And I, went online and tried to find barbershops in the area, and there's a slew of barbershops in the area where I lived. And I was just like, the price was killing me because like these barbers were asking for like 40, $50 for a haircut. And I'm like, I'm not paying $50 for no haircut because at the time there's been an evolution in the payments of how much you pay at a barbershop. Now, I'll be honest. Again, on the campus of South Carolina State University, I've only had two people cut my hair, and both of them were my teammates. Shout out to my man 40. 40 cut my hair a couple of times. But my main primary big barber was my man Big Shot. Shout out to Big Shot, um, teammate. We came in together in 91. That's my man. 30 grand. Um, and so Big Shot would cut my hair. And Big Shot only charged he only charged $2 for a haircut. And you would have the flyest haircut. And I mean, like, Shot would cut you up and you'd be in and out of the chair in like 15 minutes and you'd have a dope haircut. You couldn't beat a $2 haircut. I don't care what nobody say. Now, granted, it was the 90s and, we were poor black college students. So I get it, so maybe that wasn't the regular price, but, that kind of got me spoiled. So once I got out of college and moved to Atlanta, while I knew there weren't a lot of people offering $2 haircuts, I wasn't really expecting to pay any more than $10 for a haircut. Um, Much to my surprise, the price was a little bit higher than $10. And so I was just like, okay. And for a while, I just cut my own hair. And then obviously get married. So, before I got married, started going back to the barbershop, found me a nice little barbershop and everything. And when the boys we had our sons, when they were younger, I mean, like their first haircut, we took them to the barbershop. But once they got old enough to where they would sit in sit in place and wouldn't be moving around and stuff, I would cut their hair myself. And because I can cut hair, I can cut my own hair. It's time consuming, and I just don't feel like the whole thing with the mirror and all this stuff. I don't feel like it. But I got my own clippers the whole night. So I was a little bit, naive as far as the prices were concerned. So, for the most part, up until COVID, I was paying $20 for a haircut, right? Which I think is fair. Um, and then right before COVID, because I had been going to the same barbershop. Shout out to Brian. He's the owner of the barbershop I was going to. Brian was probably the first person to cut my hair in there, but I didn't have one particular person who would be cutting my hair. And so B would cut my hair and it'd be chill. And then one day, I think Brian was out of the shop and some other guy was out of the shop, and this guy named Jimmy was in there. And he was like, "Man, you need a cut." And I was like, "Yeah." And I was just waiting because I was waiting to see who was next or whatever. And so I jumped in the chair. Didn't know him, didn't introduce myself or anything like that. Just sat in the chair. He asked me what I wanted. He cut me up, and it was dope. And the thing I love was, he used this razor blade. He pulled out the blade and he put the blade on my face, and the blade felt so good on my face. And I had never had a barber do that with a razor blade on my face and with around my mustache, my beard. And I was like, yo, I mean, like it felt like being in a almost like how the good feeling that you get from getting massage. It kind of felt like that. So it felt good on my face. And so I just started going back to this guy. Now, keep in mind, I don't know this guy's name. We never had a conversation or nothing. Funny, but true story. This guy proceeded to cut my hair for at least 2 more years before I even knew what his name was. I just happened to be in a chair one day. Somebody came in and they said, "What up, Jimmy?" And I was like, "Oh, his name is Jimmy." Like, we never exchanged numbers, or anything. I mean, like maybe for the first year or so, I would show up every other week and he cut my hair. We wouldn't even have a conversation. And the thing that I loved about him was that I could get in his chair and like after the first 2 or 3 times he cut my hair, um, like I never had to tell him what to do. He always knew what to do. And so Um, like I said, I've been going to this guy, we went through COVID, we got through that. Um, and so I think up until COVID, I was probably paying like 20, I would pay him 25 and always paying cash. I'm not one of these guys who come with the cash app. And he liked that. I know because he mentioned that one day. He's like, man, I love the fact that you paying cash. Cause who wants to deal with cash app? But anyway, um, so right up and so I was paying him, my haircut probably was 20 and I was paying 25 because, a little tip, you know what I mean? And so right after, so I stopped going at some point in time during COVID because it was just too dangerous to be, anywhere at some point. But once I started going back, I started paying him. I think the price still was 25, but I would pay him 35 because I like the way, I like what he did, and I felt like I was getting a $35 haircut, right? So I'm cool, and I would see sometimes these discussions online about barbers charging this, barbers charging $100 for this or 150. Listen, I ain't doing all of that. I'm not getting, you're not putting no black stuff on my face. I'm not getting Beijinged out, so I'm not doing none of that, right? And so like I said, through this time, I've always paid 35. So now let's fast forward back to last month when I found out that Jimmy wasn't there. So I'm not sure who's gonna cut my hair at this point. So a guy named Tron was in there. Tron, he didn't have anybody in his chair. He was actually in Jimmy's chair. So he said, you need a cut? I was like, yeah. So I sat in the chair. I told him what I wanted, whatever, whatever. And I said, well, how much is that? He's always 35. And I was like, okay, cool. Cause I had 35 in my pocket. I always go in there with $35, right? So I go in there, Tron cuts my hair. I'm cool. I'm a little disappointed because Tron didn't break out the blade. You got man, listen, for me, you got to break out the blade. He didn't break out the blade, and I still have a problem with that. But anyway, the haircut was fly. I was fly on my birthday, fly for the celebration bowl. I was in there, right? So I go back in 2 weeks, and Tron's not in there. So this dude named Tommy's in there. So Tommy, he's in another chair. So Tommy was like, I said, well, where's Tron? He was like, well, Tron comes in after 6 or after 4. And it was like 3 o'clock. And I was like, I needed to cut right then and there. I didn't have any time to wait or whatever like that. So I was like, he was like, you want to cut? I was like, okay, yeah. So I get in the chair, I tell him what I want. And he too does not bring out the blade. And at this point, I'm a little disappointed because I want that blade. I need that blade on my face. And so this is where it gets wild. So I get up and I say, how much owe you? He was like, 40. What? You want 40? This is just a degular haircut. You ain't even give me the blade, bro. If you're not gonna give me the blade, pause, you can what you asking for $40 for? And I know what y'all thinking. It's only $5, Kyle. Why are you tripping? I'm tripping because I always believe like you get what you pay for. And I don't think I got a $40 haircut. If I thought I had a $40 haircut, I wouldn't have a problem paying him $40. But I'm trying to figure out how Tron, just 2 weeks ago said, hey, it's 35. And then you come with this 40. And so I'm like, so I only had 35 on me. So I gave him the 35 and I had to cash app him the other 5. And I'm like, I ain't about to do this. So that's when I called the homie King Germ. And I was telling Germ, I was like, man, I don't know, man. I may have to find another barbershop. And I don't want to leave the barbershop for one, because the barbershop is literally down the street from my house, right? But I also don't want to pay $40 for a hair because again, there's nothing. It's a fly. I get a fly haircut. I'm a fly man. I'm a fly dude. But no, I'm not. I'm not getting all kind of lines and shit in my head. I'm not getting Beijinged out. I ain't getting nothing spectacular. It's just a regular super fly haircut. And so I don't think that warrants $40. I could be tripping. Um, I know when you start pricing stuff out, when you look around, there's some people that pay $40 for a haircut. There's some people that pay $50 for a haircut. And what's interesting is my sons, they go to a different barber. They go to this guy named Dre, and they've been going to Dre they've been going to Dre probably about the last, at least since COVID, 6 or 7 years. Um, so I asked Cameron, our middle son, I said, hey, I said, if I went to Dre, I said, how much you think Dre would charge me for a haircut? He said, probably for you, probably because Cameron pays 30. Now, Cameron and I have the same hairstyle. He gets his faded. He gets his temps faded. That's all. And so he said, for you, Dad, he said, plus you got a beard. He was like, mustache. He said, probably 50. I was like, $50? I'm not paying $50. Now that was just his, interpretation. He would have to ask Dre. I would have to ask Dre. I've never met Dre. I mean, I've dropped the boys off to go to the barbershop, but I've never set foot in that barbershop. So I don't know Dre from a can of paint. I'm at a crossroads, man. I'm truly at a crossroads. Um, in conclusion, I don't know what to do. I'll be honest. I don't know what to do. I'm going to King Germ suggested that I still continue to go to Brian's barbershop. Um, again, the proximity because it's literally down the street from my house. I can walk in. And that's another thing too with these barbers. I don't do that whole appointment shit. Like I want to just walk in. Now, if I need to set an appointment, I will. But one, I don't want to have to wait. And that was the thing about Jimmy was that even though Jimmy was the most popular barber in that shop, um, I hardly ever had to wait. Like maybe there might be one, maybe two people ahead of me, but I always went at a certain time. So, um, like I would leave work. I mean, I work from home, so if I go to the barbershop at 10 o'clock in the morning, nobody's in there, except for maybe in the summertime. But no, it's rare that people are, you don't have the rush of the crowd in there that's at that time because people are at work or they're at school. So I could go in there at 10 o'clock, be out 10:30, 10:45, and be back at my desk. Um, so I don't know. And I'm thinking about going back to the shop and letting Tron cut my hair again. I just happen to miss Tron. But if I go and Tron says $40, I'm done. I mean, like I said, me and Brian are cool. Brian could cut my hair, but I need the blade, man. You got to bring the blade, man. If you're not bringing the blade, I can't rock with you. I even contemplated going to get my own razor blade just to kind of mess with it myself, but I like the way it feels in my face, and I've never like we weren't allowed to use razor blades back in the day because they figured that you cut yourself to death and bleed to death. Um, but I like the way it feels on my face on my mustache when or you line somebody up with that blade. So Jimmy was special, man. So I mean, Jimmy, if you listen and watch it, man, salute to you, brother, man. Good. Good luck to you and your family. And Jimmy, over probably the last year or so, man, we would have some pretty good conversations. The last 6 or 7 times I went to barbershop, Jimmy would hit me off with Bible. I didn't ask him for Bible verses, but he would hit me off with Bible verses. Very religious man. Um, he didn't really get into the whole gossipy thing in the barbershop talk or whatever like that. But he was very, family man, family oriented, had a wife and kids, and so I'm sure he's somewhere in Florida doing his thing. Man, I kind of regret that I didn't get his number because I could have at least kept in touch with him. But who knows? Maybe he'll pop up on Facebook or maybe he'll move back to Atlanta at some point. But until then, I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do. And like I said, as for now, I'll probably get a haircut this week. Um, I'm probably gonna go back to the shop and I'm gonna see if Tron can do it. Um, and if Tron can do it, Tron is gonna charge me 35. As long as he's charging me $35, I'll stay in the shop. But I still need that blade, man. I just need the blade. Can somebody give me the blade? Ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it for me. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We drop new episodes weekly. It is very, very important that you subscribe on all social media platforms, on all streaming platforms, on YouTube as well. We got a YouTube channel. Also, don't forget about our baby. It's called the Rap Soul Podcast. It's my music podcast. It's the best music podcast that you've never heard. If you're interested in talk about music and artists from the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s when it comes to rap, hip hop, soul, and R&B, make sure that you check that out and subscribe as well. Lastly, we also have merch. You can contribute to the podcast financially by purchasing merch. We have 12 Kyle Podcast t-shirts, hoodies, as well as coffee mugs. We got it for the low. Also, you can hit us up on Cash App, $TWELVEKYLE. Again, folks, that's going to do it for me. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle Podcast. I am your boy, 12 Kyle. I will catch you guys next time. 5,000. Chill.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the 12 Kyle Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and share this podcast with a friend who needs the 12 Kyle Podcast in their life. Every listen, every download, and every share helps us grow. Thanks for being a part of the 12 Kyle Podcast community. We appreciate your support. We will catch you next time. 5,000.